successful companion is a combination of a good character concept, really good writing, and an amazing actor to bring that character to life. And we definitely have an example of that here today. Please give a big welcome to the amazing Louise Jameson. Oh, do you?
And I have radar projection.
Right.
So is there anybody at the background here, then holler out. Lovely, lovely to meet you.
Thank you. So, well, you know, you've had a couple of attempts. I think it was 2000. Well, and before that, 2008.
The right one. The right one.
You had had it all worked out. You were all booked. You had a theater gig that came up over the summer and couldn't come. And you put us in touch with Mary Tam.
But it's on me.
So that was meant to be.
Yeah.
Right
so
there, the second
I'm very, very excited that you're here.
Yeah.
Finally. I've been looking forward to this for, well, since 2008.
You put your
We have a lot to talk about. You are a busy lady.
I am incredibly busy, yeah.
And you have had quite a career.
I'm
It's because you're
incredibly
precious.
too busy. Seriously.
You're in Google.
But I want to start with what's probably the biggest news story of the past year, and that is Jodie Whittaker.
Okay, anybody here not like that idea?
And it's okay to be honest. It's okay to be honest.
Yes, it is okay. It's sort of okay.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's an about time. I texted Russell T. Davies, name dropping, and said, "What do you think?" That's all I said. And he texted back, "I wish I'd had the courage."
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
He said, "It's great." I said, "I'm amazed that a program that is about inclusivity, that's its main theme, there's been such a backlash. There was like a huge backlash on Twitter." And Russell said that that's probably 30 people that have all got 100 identities. And he said that we must ignore them, and that it's absolutely brilliant, and also nothing is set in concrete. That's the marvelous thing about the program, is that everything can change. There's reason to go anywhere, do anything, be whatever sex orientation you want to be. I mean, it's just fantastic from that point of view. So if it doesn't work, it will.
It will.
There are an awful lot of companions. That is a worry for me. Just having been a companion, I feel that the companion world gets slightly watered down when you have so many companions. But, you know, time will tell. Maybe they'll find a way of making that, but they're so varied and different.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
I think so too.
He also said, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, he also said that the future is ruthless, everything, and I went, oh, that's a great title for something. And he said, you can have it. He said, have it, it's mine. And at the time I was writing a script for Omega Factor, which is one of the...
We're going to talk about that.
That Big Finish bring out, and I use it as the last line. And I wrote and told him that I'd used it, so I can now say I've co-written with Russell.
You were on the show in '77, which is kind of a period where you have this sort of wave of feminism and women power and all that kind of stuff. Were you aware at the time that Leela was sort of iconic, or was it a little bit later on when people identified as her having been sort of a part of that movement?
That's a really interesting question. It's I knew women in general were having, as they are now actually, having a huge resurgence of recognition and respect. I mean, you've had the whole Me Too campaign over here, and all that goes along with that, which I think is marvellous. I knew Women's Lib had arrived from America about 73, I suppose. We weren't calling it feminism then, we were calling it women's liberation.
Right, that's true.
But I knew women were having a tidal change was happening. But I honestly, genuinely thought I was going into a children's TV program, which is, you know, what Doctor Who was billed at. And then suddenly, what with the leather leotard, and, you know, I went on after the football results. So the television's still on in the corner, and then this woman arrives in the leather leotard. And suddenly there's another 2.5, 3 million viewers onto Doctor Who. And I'm kind of naively thinking that this is my talent that is making this happen. And then, of course, with hindsight, you realise, as Philip Hinchcliffe famously said, the leader was for the dads. You know, that was the, you know, which is, you know, patronising and flattering in equal measure. It's an interesting how I view it now as to how I viewed it then. I mean, to me, she should be wearing a leather leotard. And that's, you know, she lives in the jungle, it's hot, it's not gratuitous, however, it is gratuitous. Really.
Yeah, and it's sort of it's almost kind of a sexist position to put a character in. You are there for the dads who are watching football results to stay watching. But from that, she became this really powerful, really strong woman who so many other women identified with.
And the fan mail from women to the program, not just to me, went up. So it had I think in a way, Doctor Who is sort of happened by accident. It's like it was the first female, you know, the very first one was the first female producer and Asian director. It was thought of by an Australian. It's like they've gone, on what program can we tick all the boxes on that we have to tick? And they did it, and then it suddenly was this, you know, iconic, life-changing drama going out. And it's thanks to the fans that it's come back, because, you know, Russell T Davies is a fanboy, and you know, they all are. The Doctor Who magazine just kept going through the barren period, and it's all due to the fans that it's here. It really is a fan-owned show.
This is kind of a little bit of a sidebar, but talking about ticking all the boxes, Carol Ann Ford once said that for Verity Lambert, it wasn't just that she was a woman producing a show, it was that she was a young person.
Yeah.
Because the BBC at that time was very, you know, the old establishment, and to have a radical young person come in to lead a show like that was as shocking as her being a woman.
And what a thing to take a punt on. You know, these spots. Silent space, yeah, right. And you're travelling with his granddaughter. She wasn't his granddaughter originally, you probably know all that. They thought it was a bit indecent to have an old man travelling with a young girl. So they made them related. That made it all right.
Excuse me. Now, I know we're going to get a lot of questions from the audience about the TV show, but I want to talk to you a little bit about Big Finish, because your involvement with Big Finish has just blossomed into a whole range of things. I want to talk about how you got involved in Big Finish to start with. What was your connection there?
Okay, so go right back to my first day's filming with Lila.
Oh, wow.
And we hadn't had much rehearsal because we used to do the filming and then come and rehearse and then do the studio. So we were filming it's true that the evil one does eat jelly babies. So we were filming that scene. So we just finished doing that. And I've gone to shower off all the makeup. And there's on my door, and I open it, and there's a little boy there, aged 11-ish. And he said, could he have my autograph, even though I wasn't on camera? And his father is on sound in the next studio. And so I sign, and I you know, it's lovely, and who do I make it out to? And he said, my name's Gary Russell. So my very first Leela autograph was to Gary. Thank goodness I was nice to him. So yes, karma. So then I can't remember which year, somebody here probably knows, I was asked to do Gallifrey.
Yes, the series.
Yeah.
Right.
And the rest is history. You know, it just escalated from there.
Now, what's interesting about Gallifrey is that, on the series, Leela stays behind on Gallifrey and marries Andred. And in Big Finish, Ramada is the Lord President of Gallifrey. You and Lala Ward are very different people. But you have become such close friends.
Yes, it's odd, isn't it? She sends me up all the time. I'm completely homeopathic, and she thinks that's absolute nonsense. And when my teenage children were being appalling to live with, you know, when you still love them but you don't like them very much. and she sent me a book called "Why Are They So Weird?" which is a scientific explanation of why teenage children are difficult. Apparently there's something in your brain that doesn't quite close up until you're about 22. There are people nodding in the audience who know that. And so that you stop being the centre of your own universe in your early 20s. Well, most people do. But it takes a while for teenagers to get there. So she has a scientific explanation for everything. And there's one Gallifrey story where we swap personalities, where I become all efficient and scientific and she becomes all hippy-dippy and airy-fairy. She loved it! She was in the booth next to me going, and she was kind of going all floaty. Moving around. But yeah, we are really, really, really good friends. You know, first and foremost, we're women who share very similar politics, so there's that in common. And we're both, you know, I'm not, in her eyes I may be stupid, but I'm not, trust me. And she's got the brain the size of the planet, so, you know, and she does this enormous amount of charity work, which I have such respect for. And she copes a lot with people with dementia, and every time somebody dies at Denville Hall, she's fighting back the tears. She gets completely emotionally involved with all of them, but she can appear, I'm sure she'll forgive me for saying this, she can appear quite distant, because actually she's very shy. She's an incredibly shy person, and but once you get through that, she's adorable. Yeah, I have huge respect for her.
Gallifrey is a very interesting series.
Yeah.
You know, have you enjoyed doing that? It's gone for how many series now? It's a lot.
9?
I think about 9.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's all like political drama and all this kind of, and it's just a fascinating series.
I know, it's terrific. She does it because I prepare very thoroughly for everything I do. I even know where I'm breathing virtually. And occasionally a visiting artist will go, oh, can you explain where are we now? Because sometimes we jump about in recording because of availability, and I'll go, well, this is because so-and-so's taken over the planet and we've got to la la la. And she goes, you understand these stories? So yeah, it does. Sometimes I need to be reminded because they've taken Leela off on so many different tangents and travels. I mean, my main line is with Tom, obviously. So that's the one I hold on to and do most regularly. So when I jump back to something where I've been educated or haven't been educated, or I'm still in my leathers, or I'm wearing Time Lord Guard clothes, or you know, whatever, I just need to be reminded of it. I get a bit confused there.
Oh, sure. I mean, that's Big Finish is interesting because you are jumping into all these different parts of Leela's life, and it would take a little preparation. It would take some reminding.
Yeah.
This is who she is at this point.
Yes. I've been killed off in a companion chronicle. I wish they'd bring me back from that one. I don't like it. One that Nigel Fairs wrote, yes. So we're pushing to have, because he wrote it as part of 9 stories.
Yeah.
And I think we've only done 2 of them. So yes, I want that one to continue.
Now, with Big Finish, it's not just Doctor Who.
No.
You have done a lot of, I mean, this whole Big Finish thing has really, grown for you. You are doing a modern version of Omega Factor, which is a series that you did for the BBC in the
79.
79. Yeah.
It was my next big series for the BBC, and I got to be the Doctor.
Yeah.
Dr. Anne Reynolds. Yes, and they've let me be my own age, which is fantastic. I'm glad they're not expecting me to be running around in a leather leotard in my imagination. No, that they've let the department travel on and Jimmy no longer with us, wonderful James Hazeldean, they've introduced a character who's his son, played by John Dorney, brilliantly, I think, really, really well. So we've got a kind of mother-son relationship going, as opposed to a potential lover relationship going. But the stories are pretty much the same, and of course they can be, I think, so much scarier on sound, because the best films are in your head, aren't they?
How did that come about? Was it Big Finish that approached you about doing Omega Factor, or did you bring it to them?
No, David Richardson, who's turned into an incredibly good friend, came to me and said, would I go with him to have lunch with Natasha? Can't remember her last name. Thank you. Thank you.
He will have every answer.
Yes, and he said, because I'm trying to get the rights for Omega Factor, and if you come with me, it'll legitimise it. And let her see that I'm really serious. So the three of us had lunch together. She was thrilled that we wanted to pick it up. And she said, could she have a part in it? And David said yes. And I went, she's mute. She's mute in the series. How can you have a mute person on audio? What are we going to do? Anyway, we found ways around it. She appears in dreams and visions and you know, big dramatic moments. She comes to the rescue through the zeitgeist. So she's wonderful to have around, and really delighted that we've had to communicate with the son as well, with Tom Crane. We've had to communicate there, so you know, through telepathy. So there's all kinds of ways that we can get around. Yeah. I even gave Anna Love Life. One story.
Now, you also have a new series with Big Finish of your own creation.
Yeah.
Tell us about this, because it sounds exciting.
So in Second World War, some of you probably know about this, that there was an air transport auxiliary, which took pilots who'd been wounded out of actually fighting, that were too old or too injured, but could still fly, and they would deliver planes to the front line, as well as picking them up and transferring them from factory to factory. They would fly to the front line without radio or radar, or sometimes they'd have trained on a Tiger Moth and then been put into a Spitfire. What isn't known that it was 126 of these women, of these pilots were women, and it started with an initial corps of 8 run by a woman called Pauline Gower, who got equal pay for equal work. Yeah. Way back then. We're still fighting. Do you fight for that over here? We're still fighting for that. We're still 16-17% behind a man's wage. So yeah, we took these 8 women and we fictionalized them, much like Tenko, the series Tenko.
We're going to get to that.
We took real live stories and transformed them, and just put a smidgen of real characters in there to give it some authenticity. We've got a female producer called Helen Goldwyn, who is she's a singer, a lyricist, a musician, a playwright, an actress, now a producer, a writer. She and I have teamed up a lot. She wrote a one-woman show for me, which is a comedy about whether to have a facelift or not. As you can see, I decided against it. But it was touch and go for a while there, back in my 50s. Anyway, so Helen and I have we've become incredibly good friends, and she and I have championed this audio series called Attagirl, and written by, as I say, 4 women. They're very moving, incredible stories, and I think the rumour is that BBC are going to put that the Big Finish are going to put them forward for the BBC Audio Drama Awards. So crossing everything. You mustn't tell anyone this, but one of the producers of Downton Abbey wants to meet with me. So I'm holding my breath till I turn blue. She wants a female-led World War II story. So we've done all the research, we've got all the writers in place, we've got some wonderful actors. Let's just hold our breath. And I've written myself a cameo. That's just the essence.
Now you've been a strong proponent about the film and television industry letting women age.
Yeah.
And the play came from, that whole facelift.
Yeah.
Should I or shouldn't I?
Yeah.
So what was your thought process behind that? How did you come to the decision that you...
Well, I think I came to the decision to have a facelift because of the menopause, which of course is very rarely spoken about or alluded to. So I think, between the ages of approximately 48 to 52, it's tough for women. Your hormones are all over the place. It's as you were in puberty or pregnancy. It's not a good time to make decisions. You need patient people around you. Talking to the men in the room here. You just need to be nice to your women, and it'll pass. It will pass. And I feel much better now than I did at 52. And if things are a bit rocky, and my private life is a bit rocky, your self-esteem and your value goes down. And because the parts, there was a time in my 20s where I had the choice of 11 different parts in, various films or staged, and that doesn't happen anymore. I do still get approached, I do still get offers. I'm incredibly lucky because of that, but it's not like they're not lining up at the door. It's not, my career isn't what it was, and that's a lot to do with there not being the parts around. There are many more parts written for women under 30 than there are for over 50. Which is why we need more women writers. I don't think we can sit back and whinge on that a 22-year-old doesn't know how to write about the menopause. Why would he? Seriously, why would he? You need people that have gone through an experience to write about it authentically. Not that I have to kill someone if I'm writing a murder. That's not true. However, I do think we need more women writers. And when I wasn't exactly sacked from EastEnders, but I was let go in a very unceremonious way. And it was my 8th series, I think, for the BBC, something like that. And they told the papers before they told me. It was brutally handed. Whenever we've parted before, like at the end of Bergerac, after 4 seasons, it was time to move on. They called me into the press office. Is there anything we can do for you? What are you doing next? Can we help promote it? I mean, incredibly generous. And you expect that, well, no, they just went axed and the DeMarcos are leaving, we don't like them, we produce them. 3 months earlier, they'd asked if I'd been prepared to stay for 5 years. So they obviously were, debating my future. But it was, so I just thought, I got very depressed after that, that my life could be so at the mercy of someone else's whim. I thought that's never going to happen again. So I put pen to paper. And started to write. So I'm now never out of work, because as soon as I'm not involved in something that someone else is creating, I have a million things to create. And I've got a commission hovering from Big Finish, and they're so good to me. They said we've not put a deadline on this, but it's a 4-parter for me and Tom, which I really, really So during that time, I went to meet a specialist for a facelift, and I just went to have the bags under the eyes corrected, and he said, oh, we can do something about your jowls as well. I went, jowls? Jowls? And before I played it, I was, he did ding, 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 ding on the computer, time around, and I looked 18, and I thought, oh yeah. And I'd signed the thing, and as I walked out, he patted me on my bottom, saw me out the door. And I thought, what did I expect? A politically correct plastic surgeon? It's not going to happen. Anyway, a job came up, so I had to postpone the operation, and I never reinstated it. I just never picked up the phone to reinstate it, to put it in place. And during that time, we wrote Pulling Faces, and it seemed like a sort of cathartic exorcism of a desire to try and be 18. It wouldn't have solved the problem. And I look at some of my girlfriends, and they look amazing. They've had some fantastic work done, and it's delicate and it's subtle. I look at some of them, and it's awful. I mean, really awful. And I figure you buy about a decade for yourself and then you kind of run out of skin to go. And then you see these amazingly young, beautiful faces on these bodies that don't quite match it. So it's a very complicated issue. I'm all for women doing what they want to do. I'm not saying don't do it, but when I was thinking about it, do you know Eileen Atkins? She said to me, don't do it. She said, she's got a very wrinkly, rather beautiful face now. And she said, my phone doesn't stop. They cannot find a wrinkly woman in Hollywood. So, I don't know. I feel good and comfortable. I'm presented daily with images of myself. Today being a prime example of my images of myself at 26, 27. And I was terribly worried about what I looked like then. And now I look at it and I think, what are you worried about? But I have a nostalgia, but it doesn't feel like it kind of felt like a bereavement at one point, and it doesn't feel like that now. And actually, there's so much going on in the world. To worry about your wrinkles just seems unnecessary.
Yes.
Yeah, unnecessary waste of energy. That's,
Okay. You have a whole history of television, Josh, but I know that your first love is theater.
yeah.
So what draws you to the theater? And then even now as a writer, you've written.
Theatre.
Yeah, you have. And so what's your attraction to theater? What is it that you love?
I'm not a religious person, but I do think that the church, that the theatre is part brothel, part chapel. I think it's very, very sexy, and I think it touches the divine. The group energy of a silence, a collective silence, has something incredibly magical about it. When everybody in the room is concentrating on a pinhead of emotion, and you know that I think people should leave a theatre slightly altered from how they arrived. Be that happier, sadder, wanting to debate, discuss, feeling relaxed. I think there's a space for Ray Cooney farces because it just gets everyone's endorphins up. But I've just finished a play called Vincent River, which is about hate crime, and it's written by Philip Ridley, who's a fantastic poet and playwright. And it's a really dark piece. It's about an older woman who invites her teenage stalker into her apartment, and you find out why during the course of 90 minutes. And it's obviously it's anti-hate crime. It's a play about hate crime. And at the end of it, people couldn't clap. People just sat there, and the stage manager had to start the applause every night.
It's okay
because people were like so rocked by it, and I would come out into the bar afterwards. It was a fringe theatre, and you walk through the bar, people were like sobbing into their gin and tonic with emotion on it. It looks like it's going to have a transfer to the Trafalgar Studio Theatre in August, which I'm thrilled about. But when you and people will, and it's the kind of play, and I thank the writing, and my fellow actor, Tom Mahy, M-A-H-Y, it's his first job, he's brilliant. People will campaign against hate crime, and people will phone their MPs, members of Parliament, because of this play. And when theatre can do that, it's a safe place to debate dangerous issues. And if it's on television,